Welcome to Extraordinary Ability with your host, Candice Ackermann. Every episode celebrates foreign nationals with extraordinary abilities who qualify for O1, EB1, and IW visas. Learn how you may qualify, especially if you have been denied other U.S. visas. You can find this show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on www.visalawpros.com. Now here's the host of Extraordinary Ability, Candice Ackermann.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back again for another exciting episode of Extraordinary Ability. I'm Candice Ackermann. I'm the founder and managing attorney of visalawpros.com. And I'm very excited to have another special guest on today's podcast episode. Special guest, please introduce yourself and tell us where you are from.
Hey, everybody. My name is Chongjian Wen. I go by my last name, Wen, so it's easier. I come from China originally. I was born and raised in China. And after high school, I came to the United States for college education. And after that, I started working here. And that's how I got connected to Candice.
Now, Wen's area of extraordinary ability is in, drum roll,
it's
marketing.
Yes.
In marketing. Yeah. And a practice pointer here, because the O1B statute, which is for artists, defines the field of art as any field of creative endeavor. So I often have a lot of skeptical calls from HR people. Well, how is marketing an art? Or how is this an art? Isn't that for performers, singers, dancers, playwrights? Yes, the O1B category is for artists in the traditional layperson sense of the word. However, as we just said, the statute defines it as any field of creative endeavor. So when the H-1B lottery becomes more onerous every year and the chances for selection in the lottery become more ever slim for people and not an option if you're not selected, we get creative and see if there are alternative options. So that is Wen's situation. We've been a victim of the H-1B lottery peril, where I had to dust off my cape again and examine alternative options for Wen. And luckily for us and for Wen and his employer, we managed to find a path under the O1B statute. Another practice pointer which is the reason we're showcasing Wen on today's podcast, is to bring up the elements that we use for O1B, one of which is that you have in the past and will in the future serve in a starring, leading, or critical role for a distinguished organization. Now, Wen, and we'll get a little bit more into the genre of the work the type of marketing work that he does, which is specialized, happens to work for an employer that has a conglomerate of entities. This is helpful because, as we said, the element has a past and future component. You had to have in the past and will in the future serve in a lead, starring, or critical role for a distinguished organization. Distinguished usually means there's some media attention on the entity, but and it has to be more than one entity. That is to say, you cannot use that prong working for the same entity in the past and one in the future. They have to be two distinct entities. That is usually determined by the tax ID number. So if you work for an entity that has a conglomerate, if you worked for one that has a separate tax ID number than the other that you would be offered a position in, then you can demonstrate the distinction of the two entities that you have in the past and will in the future serve in a distinguished in a starring role for distinguished organizations. So that's just another practice pointer for all of you viewers out there. Another reason I wanted to bring Wen on the show today is because one of the purposes of this podcast is to show the human side to immigration work. People, I've heard it said, ask me before, isn't your job just filling out forms for people? I mean, how hard is that really? And I say, no, I'm a lawyer, I'm a marketing professional, sometimes a therapist. But really what's interesting about the work that I do is that it really involves people's lives. And so Wen is on the show today because one of the compelling parts of the backdrop of this case is that Wen happened to be back at home in his home country of China during COVID, while we were processing his case, and successful not only on the petition, but having to have his visa issued in China. So just for the viewers, oftentimes an O1 case has two components to it. You file a petition with USCIS, but if the individual is not presently in the United States at the time his or her petition is granted, that would require a second step, going to an embassy and applying for the visa to actually be issued and endorsed in your passport. And this is where I'd like Wen to chime in, because as I said prior to hopping on our Zoom today, that I never actually had a chance to speak with you about what that experience was like as a practical matter. If you want to share with us, what was it like being in China during COVID? What was it like going through the visa process, waiting out a decision? And then what was it like actually trying to have your visa issued at a U.S. embassy in China during COVID? Go ahead, Wen.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Candice, I first of all, I want to say that, I would not have been here, if it weren't for what you did. And, I remember the first day I came back, I had a lunch with one of the partners of the company that's friends with Candice's for many years. And we took a photo of us together and sent it over to her. And that would not have happened without your work. And I just want to go back to what you said about filling forms. And I'm very good at filling forms. I've done that before. And I would say this is not an endeavor where you want to take on without professional help. It's like, you don't want to. It's like in my industry where, in aviation, you don't want to go fly an airplane without a pilot. That's what I would say. So going back to what we're talking about, being in China during COVID, after we got approved for the O1 case and going to the embassy. And actually, there's another element to it. I got married when I was in China during COVID, and I had to apply for an O3 for my spouse. So that added another, process to it. But anyways, we during the period of us trying to get O1, I believe we also had multiple RFEs. Is that correct, Candice? And
we did.
Yeah, and you managed that very well. And I was away. I was on the other side of the planet, and then you managed that. We got approved. And then another issue I had is Candice had to apply for this visa for me without a valid passport. So my passport expired, and at the time during COVID, the government in China would not issue a new passport unless you have quote unquote legitimate reasons to travel abroad. And I had to convince them that this is a legitimate reason because this is my job, and to prove to them that I had the paperwork, which is the O1 approval. Long story short, I got the passport, and then I had to apply for an interview at the U.S. consulate / embassy in China. And usually it was a multiple months wait just to get an appointment. And then when you go there, you have to obviously prove who you are, and that they will talk to you about. It's one thing to get your USCIS approval. It's another thing to convince the consular officer that this is correct, this is not fraudulent, and that you're who you say you are, and you're actually capable of performing the tasks that you're believed to be able to do. So that's another interview in itself, which can be stressful, but that went very well because I prepared well for it, and then after that, we had to get through some COVID restrictions, which I won't get into the details, but it involves a lot of testing. It involves a lot of proving that I was not positive or have never been positive in the last 6 months. Long story short, after that's all done, I was in the good US of A by I think June of last year with my wife. So that was an interesting story, and I think that if I were to do it again, there are certain things that I personally would have done differently. First of all, not traveling, not in another country when you're trying to get an approval. Number two is to really communicate your strengths and skills better, because every time Candice has to ask me 5-10 different questions. And by the way, you actually know that? Okay, you're good at this. So make sure you're not bragging about yourself. Make sure you tell Candice everything about yourself.
Thank you, Wen. I just have a few follow-up questions, and I know you didn't want to get into it, but I'm imagining, were you allowed to leave your house to go to the embassy appointment? I just had visions of hazmat suits.
And that's true. I mean, during COVID, you get tested every other day. If you want to leave your apartment complex or your house, you have to be tested. So a test is only valid for 3 days, which means that, and it takes 1 day to get results. So you have to be tested pretty much every other day. My wife at the time was working in China, so she had to go out. She had to go to her job. And then every other day she has to line up in front of her, in front of a testing stand, actually, that was stationed outside of where we lived, and get tested. And usually it can take, an hour or half an hour. So every day you see long lines just waiting to get tested. And if you are positive, and if you are even in contact with somebody that's in contact with somebody that's positive, 4 people removed, you'll still be subject to a quarantine at home. And if you do get tested positive, you're going to be sent to a medical center, if you will, a quarantine center. You have no choice. They'll come get you. So everybody has a phone app that shows your test result. So wherever you go, you have to show them whether it's a green code, which means you're good, or a yellow code, which means you're not good, which means you've been in contact with somebody that's tested positive. Then you need to be quarantined at home. And if you have a red code, then you're out of luck. Then you have to be sent to essentially a hospital or like a quarantine center. So I would say that the whole process, when I was going to the interview at the U.S. consulate, that's the time when it was, I was lucky that it was not as restrictive, because China was reporting maybe 10 cases a day at the time. But after that, it was a different story. After that, you can't even, I don't think you can even, go grocery shopping without some sort of permit, so it was very different in China. I think it was, but now it's totally different. Now it's all open up, and actually, when I was at the U.S. consulate for the interview, there were only about, I would say, a 15-minute wait. But if you were to do it now, it'll be, probably 2-hour wait just to get in. So, because a lot of people are trying to get their visas.
Right. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. That was interesting. I wanted to just reflect back on the RFE process, only because I remember that one of the categories we used was that experts in the field attest to your prominence. So they actually hammered down, which they are doing now, on achievements. You're prominent for what achievements in the field. So you actually did develop or design a tool internally for your employer, but it did have some outside review and use, and it had some ripple effect outside of just your job, which is how we were able to show it was an achievement. Do you want to speak a little bit, without revealing your secret sauce that's proprietary to your company? Can you say in generalities, the cool tool that you developed for your company? And right. What it needs to do. Also, we didn't get into the fact that your field is aviation. So how is it possible to be creative in marketing or developing a tool in the aviation industry?
Right. And aviation industry itself is a people think of it as highly advanced, and it is, cutting edge technology. But the business in aviation, the business tools and the business practices have been in place, for decades, and there hasn't been a lot of innovation to it. There hasn't been, when people are calculating their, for example, the cost of operations on a multi-million-dollar asset, it's, you'd be surprised how primitive the tools to use. It's a spreadsheet with one page and just some numbers, right? And then they will call their friends and their colleagues. Oh, how much does it cost to operate this aircraft, or this, how much does it cost to for me to do certain things with the aircraft? Now, what I did with the help of my team at my company is we developed a database that contains very detailed cost of operations. That's not some sort of algorithm based. It's very detail oriented. It's based on reality, and we have a financial terminal developed so that at the click of a button, you can see you can see the things, the numbers that people typically would have to spend a whole morning or a whole day to figure out. Another thing about that tool is that it gives you information about not just operational or financial inspection, information about the assets that you own, but also the technical capabilities and differences between all types of business aircraft, whether it's their performance or their cabin size, their speed, you name it. So there's 30,000 data points that we were able to collect from very fragmented sources, and we were able to combine them, validate the data, and use it for our clients. So, I guess the creative part of that is we were able to use what's out there to improve the efficiency of the business, and therefore reduce the cost, because you have to employ people to run these numbers. Now it's really just click, anybody can use it. And, from a guy that's never used it before to somebody that's been in the business for many years, it's a convenience tool for the guy that knows how to do it. But it's also a tool, it's a tool of learning for people that are new to it. So I would say that's a huge aspect of what I did.
And are there any projects, again, not proprietary, or any things you're working on now that involve your creative skill set that you want to share with us, like how you've been using your O1 and what you're working on now?
Right. Yeah. And I think going back to what I said earlier about aviation, it's a advanced industry, but in terms of the product itself, but the business practices, it needs a lot of innovation, and a huge part of it is, I'm part of an organization. It's called International Aircraft Dealers Association. What we're trying to do together is to create a platform where companies like ours, think about real estate. You have a standard of operation. You have a platform, multiple platforms. For example, you have your Zillow, you have your Redfin, where people can look up availabilities. Whereas in our industry, the information is fragmented, right? Somebody in the U.S. may have, or somebody in Montana may have a business aircraft for sale, and this person puts it puts an ad out, email ad out somewhere, but how many people actually know about it? Not a whole lot, right? And the same goes to airplanes in China, which is where I'm from, and that's a focus that that's one of my focuses, to bring airplanes overseas, business aircraft assets, and putting them into a system. Aircraft Exchange, for example, is a new platform where we're helping International Aircraft Dealers Association to develop, where it becomes a central source of information, of valid information, it's a database, it's a marketing platform where you want to buy an aircraft, or you want to sell an aircraft. This is a great platform. I know there's some commercial platforms out there that we also use, but I would say that it's more profit driven than information driven. What we're trying to do is to help the industry as a whole to grow, and to provide accurate data, accurate information, accurate data about the aircraft, about the seller, and reduce the transaction, the friction of transaction.
Oops. We're having a little bit of a tech issue. Maybe we can get Wen back on here.
Yeah.
Tech issue.
Where did you lose me? Where did you lose me?
Just briefly. You can carry on. Just briefly.
Mm-hmm. No, I was no problem. So I was saying that I'm working on helping the industry develop a platform for our industry colleagues to collaborate better. It's primarily our industry is very fragmented, and information is not being shared in an open, transparent manner. Marketing materials are usually, there's no standardization. That's something I'm focused on to help our industry and our company to really develop an environment where businesses like us that help our clients buy and sell aircraft and business aircraft to be able to essentially have a marketplace. So that's what I'm focused on right now.
Amazing. So Wen is a disruptor of sorts to use his artistic ability to create tools and platforms and marketing materials within the aviation industry to streamline the efficiency of jet sales, rentals, and purchases. So it's actually very exciting to be part of people pioneering new methods and tools and technologies and ways of doing things in their industry. So that's what we're showcasing for Wen today. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for your time, for being open to share your story with the viewers in Facebook land and eventually on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you for your time. Thank you to all the viewers watching today. And we will see you again next time.
Thank you, Candice.
You've been tuning into Extraordinary Ability with your host, Candice Ackermann. Learn how you may qualify for O1, EB1, and IW visas, especially if you have been denied other U.S. visas. Please visit www.visalawpros.com to contact us and for other episodes. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.